Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Broncos return to practice today. I'm going to head out there very shortly. Lots of just stuff going on, I feel like, all over the place when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to the Broncos, when it comes to the Avs, Nuggets, all sorts of stuff. So we're going to be covering a lot of that tomorrow morning on your Denver Sports Daily. So definitely make sure you tune into that. But 10 observations from the Broncos week 1 loss to the Seattle Seahawks 26-20. I want to get into it. I spent the better part of yesterday afternoon and this morning really diving into the tape and seeing exactly where things went wrong, what happened with Bo Nix, just getting a lot of things that I feel like a lot of people aren't actually talking about as well. So I'm excited to do that. Let me know if you guys end up liking this series too. That helps me to know if you guys want to see it every single week, if we start to see patterns with some of the guys, etc. So there is a lot to dive into, but I figured the number one thing that we would do just to start it off, because to be completely honest with you, there is a lot of potential. It's still there. So let's get into it. Oh, hold on. One thing. Potential is there for this Denver Broncos team. It really is, you guys. And I know it's hard, especially when we've gone through the constant roller coaster of bad team after bad team, not making the playoffs in Super Bowl 50. Like, I get it. We're frustrated. We're ready to see more action from this Denver Broncos team. We're ready to see them play late into June or January and February. I get it. I'm with you. I'm the exact same way. Trust me. I grew up a Broncos fan. I've got all the stuff behind me. As you can see, the Champ Bailey signed stuff. I'm totally there. But know that the potential is there. There were so many little things that I noticed from this game where if it just hadn't happened this way, then there would have been explosive plays, right? If there were so many slips, and I know Javonte Williams even commented on the fact that the Seahawks had gotten a new field and it was very slippery and lots of players had been slipping on it. So there's obviously the one we all remember when we had the Alex Singleton turnover. Everyone was so excited. We're like, yeah, the Broncos are going to score. They're going to march down the field. They only got like 20 yards to go, whatever it was. And then Javonte Williams slips and it really just ended the drive. And it was like, oh my gosh, you can't tell me that's going to be the thing, the dagger that doesn't allow them to capitalize on getting 7 points off of the turnover. So there were lots of slips. There was also lots of miscommunication, which they have to clean up, and we will see them clean up. Like, I'm sure they went in and watched film and it was like, well, this happened, this happened, this happened. So we need to make sure that we can fix that, especially with the offensive line, the running backs, the tight ends on that side of the ball. There was a lot of communication. Defensively, I'm excited about it. There's a lot of good stuff to come. We're going to get into it here in just a second. But offensively, there was so much miscommunication, it felt like. So between a lot of slips, a lot of miscommunication, and then just how about this one? 5 minutes into the first half, the defense wasn't even set. And I know I was just hyping them up saying the defense has been really good, but this was the one play that stuck out defensively to me besides Baron Browning jumping off sides, which just is unfortunate, but that's on Baron Browning, is literally 5 minutes left to go in the first half. The defense was not set when Geno Smith ends up throwing for a first down. Like, it was very clear that they snapped the ball and everyone was like, oh crap, where are we supposed to go? Like, watching that in slow motion and seeing the defense actually have to go through that, it was like, all right, those type of things will get cleaned up the more and more we get into it. So they're all still learning. They're learning the cadence for so many things. They're learning which ways to communicate with who. They're learning how to follow the leaders. Alex Singleton is one of the leaders. He was one of the main guys that I thought talking to somebody else on the sides, and it was clearly like, oh crap, I got to be able to get out there. So there were the slips. There's the miscommunication. They weren't set for the defense. Like, it was right there. And then the other thing that just gave me, like, knowing that the potential is there for this Denver Broncos team, it involves Alex Singleton again. There was one run from Geno Smith. I don't remember how long it was. It was in the second quarter. It was a really big run. And it was like, okay, I can see that. Don't mind my dog barking. She's going crazy at the door right now. But essentially, we're watching him just run down the field. You guys, when I tell you that Alex Singleton was this close, and I mean this close, if he would have gone to the left instead of the right on the guard, he 110% would have gotten Geno Smith, and he wouldn't have ran, and that would have been that. So absolutely insane to be able to think that just one or two little plays could definitely have changed some of the bigger plays that came from this game. And you might be thinking, well, Rachel, of course, like, that's all football works. And I get it, but we've been so down dog on the Denver Broncos that I just want people to know, like, the potential is so there. So, like, don't get down on them too bad. It really is there. They're going to get better. The communication and all that kind of stuff, it just takes a little bit of time. It will get there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of excitement. I want to see what you guys are saying in the comments. That's my favorite part of these. I say it every single time, but I love chatting with you guys in the comments. It always brings me so much joy. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Bottom line is SP was too protective of Bo Nix. I've seen this a lot, and I do agree. They should have let Bo breathe a little bit, but we'll get into it in just a second too. But holy smokes, you guys, the offensive line was rough. So we'll get into it here in just a second. But my next observation coming out of the game on Sunday was there were so many freaking missed tackles. Holy crap. I swear the Seahawks probably had to get 1/3 of their yards because there were so many missed tackles. They will clean it up. They will clean that up. It goes back to the potential is there. There were so many missed tackles and dumb moves too. One of the most frustrating moves that I saw even was Greg Dulcich. Great coverage for Javonte Williams, right? It was great. Javonte gets past him. Greg Dulcich just lets the guy go. What does the defender do? He runs the opposite way, and he ends up getting Javonte Williams' feet. Like, those type of plays cannot happen. I was like, what are we doing here? And it wasn't like he was 10 yards down the field. He was like, literally, as soon as the Javonte Williams had passed Greg Dulcich, it was like, all right, I did my job. Like, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. I got Greg Dulcich. I'll just leave it at that. Greg Dulcich, to me, is a bit of a liability, not just for injury reasons alone. So that to see that play, and again, I'm doing this in like slow motion, you guys. Like, I am watching piece by piece for each guy that is moving where. That was one of those moves where I was just so extremely frustrated. I was like, seriously? Like, that is going to be the thing that stops Javonte from possibly going 10 yards. It's because on your coverage, you just said, okay, I passed him and let him go. Frustrating beyond belief. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to. Let's talk about some positives, though, for this Denver Broncos team, because there is one guy, and I'm going to even give you a second to guess it. I've talked about him plenty. I have talked about him being my dog, my DAWG, my dog. Put it in the comments if you know, because I know there's a lot of regulars on here who are going to be like, oh, I know who this guy is. He has been phenomenal. He was phenomenal. He was so much fun to watch. Yes, he had some of his own moments, but you guys, he accounted for more than half of the team's times for hitting the quarterback, okay? He led the NFL in pass rush win rate on Sunday. It is ridiculous. He is a stud. Can anybody guess it? I'm waiting for the comments before I actually say his name because he's so much fun to watch, and I think that he's just going to accelerate this defense times a million. So, I don't see any of the comments coming in. I'm going to give you like another 30 seconds, but he was a stud. Again, they had 7 quarterback hits on Sunday's game for the Broncos, and one person, individual. Ooh, it's not Roach. I saw that comment come in. It's not Roach. One person accounted for more of half of them, and it was 4 of the 7 of them. And like I said, he led the NFL in pass rush win rate. He was a freaking stud, and that guy is missed. Oh, just kidding. Oh, you guys. Sad day. I went to the wrong thing. Well, we'll get to what Surtain does well. But it was Jonathan freaking Cooper. He was an absolute stud. He is the team's highest QB hit tally in the last 5 games. Thank you for Andrew Mason for that stat. He's been a stud. He looked great. He was so effective, especially in the first half. And I saw the comment that came down and said the defense was non-existent in the second half. Let's dive into this just a smidge. This is week 1 in the NFL. Okay, the fact that they played lights out in the first half, I get it. We're like, oh, they should be ready to go in the second half. Their bodies are not there yet. 60 minutes of pure grind of football, especially with how, decently well, essentially, the Seahawks offensive line played. Like, they were having to think about it as like running through quicksand in a way, right? Like, you're having to dig your feet in, but every single time you have to bring it up, feels like you're barely moving. That was the Broncos defense essentially having to line up against these guys. The Seahawks are good. They're probably going to make the playoffs. Like, I'm not trying to dog out them too much. They've got things to pick or clean up too, so don't worry on that front. But The defense was non-existent in the second half. The defense got tired because they were spending so much time on the field. You can't fault them for that because the offense wasn't really doing anything at all. They were not able to run the ball, and that's how you run out the clock. So the defense was spending so much time, unfortunately, on the field. Bo Nix having interceptions, so they were having to go back out there on such a short notice. So yeah, don't dog on them too hard. I know it looked ugly, but the fact that it probably should have been more than 26 points that they gave up, I think we got to take that as a bit of a win. I don't like the, oh, you did a good job type wins. Trust me, I'm more about actually getting W's, but on this one, I'm going to give them a bit of a pass. But what does Surtain do so well? I haven't actually really watched Patrick Surtain so like in depth as I did this past like 24 hours. One, on his coverage, a lot of the times you will see corners, and I know this is like basic football 101. They always say like keep your eye on your target, but a lot of the times we see corners go after the ball. And it's fascinating because Patrick Surtain never looks for the ball. He is just following his target 100%. He's got eyes locked on him. He doesn't look anywhere else. And it was really fascinating to just watch it time and time again. Like, again, he never really looked for the ball. When the ball was coming to DK Metcalf, he was completely locked on it. By the time it came, I'm assuming, into his peripheral vision was when he was able to like swat the ball. His head was completely turned away from it. And it was just fascinating to watch how he do it. Another thing that he does so well is on his tackles. He knows he's not big enough to bring down a lot of these guys, but essentially he's just waiting for other guys to come over and help. So as long as he can put his hands on somebody and be able to stop them for a quick second, that gives everybody else on the defense enough time to run over to be able to stop him. And he just does it so well. He does it in like really weird ways too. Like he doesn't 100% go for the feet like we see a lot of corners do. He does a bit of a unique tackle sense. So watching him go through all of that, it was really fascinating to me. I'm not going to lie. I was like, okay, I see you. PS got the big bucks. He should play better. I think PS got called for a few, I don't know. I don't want to say makeup calls, but it definitely was one of those things where I was like, okay, come on. I don't know. Some of the calls that we saw in this game, I was just like, whatever. You just got to live with them. You can't do anything about it. On the opposite side of him, though, I thought Riley Moss had a really good game. He got picked on a ton, and I did think that he did really well. There were a few slips that he had, which resulted in first downs, but some of the catches that Tyler Lockett made, I was like, even the best defenders, you possibly can't start. Like, you can't have that be what puts you down after a game because they were insane catches by Tyler Lockett. That was the one, unfortunately. I saw another one of the comments too. Hold on, let me find it. Despite all of the struggles, if Riley Moss hadn't cut his fingernails before the game, we would have had one last shot on offense at the end of the game. That is so true. That catch by Tyler Lockett was so good. That's why I'm saying we can't dog on Riley Moss at all. He played a really good game. It was fun to be able to watch him just like slowing down the game a little bit and seeing where he had impacts because he was all over the field, you guys. Like, I don't think we gave him enough credit. It sucks that it felt like Tyler Lockett burned him a little bit, but really he just had some insane catches, but the coverage overall was still really good. So it was fun to watch Riley Moss as well. And then PS2, man, I learned so much from watching PS2, just slowing down all the footage and seeing what he does. I can see why he got the big bucks. That's for sure. We'll go on to number 5. Dun, 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 dun. Secondary hype train. Okay, so this sticks with PS2, Riley Moss, PJ Locke, all of those guys. They are so close. After every single play on defense, I saw at least one guy giving high fives. Like every single one, or a slap on the helmet, like slap on the pads, anything like that. You could tell that they are a really, really close bunch. And we've heard the different quarterbacks talk about how it's not just the offense who's really close. It's not the defense. It's everybody. But actually seeing that in game and real footage, I was like, this defense, this secondary in particular is really, really close. So that's a good thing. That means that they're communicating well. That means they're all getting along, which is huge. And that can only help. And to be honest, I feel like the secondary had a pretty good game. I really did. I didn't think that they had a bad game. I feel like I expected them to struggle a bit more because although I did think that the Seahawks were going to go after Surtain a little bit, which they kind of did. They tested him a smidge and then Surtain did what Surtain did. And they were like, okay, well, we can't do that. They went after Riley Moss. They went after PJ Locke, Brandon Jones. And I feel like otherwise everybody did pretty good. So I would give that whole group, we'll give them, you tell me, a B or a B minus, because I did think they were pretty good overall. Okay, next one. PJ Locke, So that is the sore subject of the Broncos secondary. Unfortunately, he got beat quite a lot. And it's a little unfortunate because I thought that all of last year he was so much better than Kareem Jackson. And so every single time Kareem would go back in, I was like, PJ Locke should be out there. PJ Locke, he's played so much better. He's played so much better. So my expectations for PJ Locke this year were sky high. I was like, this dude's going to have a great year. And game one was a little tough on him. Probably the most embarrassing one was when Geno Smith ran in the touchdown. Does everybody remember that? And yeah, Geno Smith outran PJ Locke. When you say a cornerback or a quarterback outran a safety, I'm like, oh, this is not good at all. And Geno Smith had his way with PJ Locke. It was rather embarrassing. And there were a few times where it was like PJ Locke got burned pretty bad. So I don't know if that was just miscommunication on where he should be in the field, but definitely not a good look for him. I don't think he had a great film study session on Monday. That's for sure. Let's get down to number 7. I promise we will get back to a lot of the comments because I still see them coming in. So keep them coming. I promise at the end of the show, we'll get to them. Marvin Mims. I had asked this question to James Palmer on yesterday's episode of Coffee Break, and I said, why aren't they utilizing the speed of Marvin Mims? And he reminded me that all training camp, we were all dogging on Marvin Mims. And that's true. We really were. It was not Marvin Mims' best training camp. We saw him get frustrated time and time again. Between him and Troy Franklin, it was like, oh man, who's having a worse training camp? The expectations were really high for Marvin Mims. It was like, well, why aren't they using him? And James Palmer pointed out, well, there's no trust in Marvin Mims right now. Now, from the punt return aspect, for the times that he actually touched the ball, first of all, the dynamic punt return, I don't think it's all really that dynamic. It was a little boring in my personal opinion. We saw a lot of touchbacks. But for the times that he did, he had 2 good runs versus 3 not so great runs. So hopefully those will improve. I mean, I think special teams overall, it looks a lot better than in years past we've seen. And I don't know if it's because of the dynamic punt return, but essentially Marvin Mims, he's got to be able to use his speed. And it just feels like he's a little nervous to like fully go, right? I feel like as soon as you catch the ball, you just got to pick your way and run with it. And sometimes I was like, I feel like he's questioning too many routes and all this kind of stuff. And then I just think you need to go for it. Just pick your route, whichever way you're going to do it, and absolutely bomb for it, because that's the best way to use your speed. You get to catch the ball first before everybody else gets to move. So there's 1 or 2 seconds that you have the ball and you get to run before it really hits in everybody else's head. And then they are starting to go after you. So we really need to see Marvin Mims use that speed. And we know he has it, which is why I still want to see him try and get involved in the offensive side of things with Bo Nix. But we also have to find some trust there as well. So Marvin Mims, give me your guys' opinions on him right now. Are we high on Marvin Mims? Are we waiting for him to do something bigger? Give me your thoughts. I hope he's not just a punt return guy in the NFL. It seems like it'd be a little bit of a bummer. Coming in at number 8 on my 10 observations, it is, in fact, there's a lot of blame on the running backs right now, including coming from Shawn Pyton. And yes, it was not good. Their carries were not good. They, in fact, had 0 yards after touch per carry. And I'm like, that's insane. When you actually think about it, that's just a disgusting stat. But I will say that the line and the coverage did not do much to help the running backs game at all. They can be dynamic. We saw it at the end of the first and the beginning of the second. They can start to get rolling a little bit. I'm still curious with what happened with Javonte Williams, why he was quote unquote put in the doghouse, because they really went to Jaleel McLaughlin. But I don't think Javonte had a bad game. Besides the fact that he slipped a few times, I was like, I really did not feel like he was bad. He didn't impact the game negatively, it felt like. But Shawn Pyton must have saw something else that I didn't, because it felt like he was in the doghouse for a majority of the second half. And we were like, where the heck is he? But these running backs can be dynamic. They just need better coverage, and they need a better line to be actually help them out and not just get absolutely demolished coming at them. So I would say don't put too much blame on the running backs, because I think that they have all of the potential in the world to be able to improve, but they just need some help from everybody else. Oh my goodness. What's going on, everybody? Let me know how you guys are in the comments. I'm going to take a sip of water. I see a lot of people who are calling out Shawn Pyton. Are people starting to turn on Shawn Pyton? I'm really curious, because it seems like people are not happy at all with him. I see a lot of people also talking about VJ. And it's so funny because I posted it was going to be one of our topics of conversation on Monday about like, is VJ somewhat on a hot seat? And people are like, no, the defense actually played like a really good game. And while I also agree with you, there's still a lot of people out there who are like, VJ should be fired immediately. You lose one game and they're like, you should be fired. Want more from Marvin Mims. Me too. Want more from Marvin Mims, rooting for him to succeed. He needs to grow a few branches on his route tree. Totally would agree with that one. So hopefully we do see a little bit more out of Marvin Mims and we see that out at practice. I'm excited to get out there. I haven't been out there since training camp ended. So I'm pumped. Yep. This is so true as well. Cecil said on several occasions that Mims leans on his route, so he tells the DB where he's going. That is so true. And it's crazy because in the NFL, you lean an inch. You have your shoulder. If I was sitting like this and this was going straight, if I had my shoulder like this much, they would be like, okay, well, we know which way you're going. And it's true. He does lean a lot on which way he's going to run for his routes, which makes it super easy for defensive backs to follow him. So true. Cecil, shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you. Okay. Number 9 for my observations, though, there's a real emphasis on getting the ball out, like within seconds. And I don't know if that means that Shawn Pyton doesn't have a lot of trust in Bo. He's trying to help Bo out and not make him, stress out even more as a bit of a rookie. But there were plenty of passes that were behind the line of scrimmage and almost at the line of scrimmage. And unfortunately, the offensive line and the coverage just didn't allow anybody to get beyond the line of scrimmage. Or if they would have their feet still on the line of scrimmage and get like 1 yard. So it was pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie. And that was one of those things where I talked about it on, I believe, Denver Sports Daily, where it's just like, we have to give Bo Nix a little bit of time, but Shawn Pyton also needs to do that. Like, don't make it too easy for the guy in a sense. Like, don't have him just completely get rid of the ball, which we saw him scramble so much too. So I know he was running all over the place, but like, allow the pocket to engulf him just a little bit more. Give him 1 or 2 more extra seconds to see if he can make a play out of it. I think throwing behind the line of scrimmage, 5 yards or whatever it's going to be, I feel like that never benefits a team extremely well. But again, it goes back to your offensive line having to protect your quarterback, having to give him those extra seconds to be able to do it. And unfortunately, that was just not the case at all. Keep it coming. I see somebody who's talking about how we delete comments, which is not true. I cannot run graphics, talk, and read comments and still delete comments either. So that's not true, unfortunately. Okay, last one. Both connection with the wide receivers. Let's just chit chat about this one. It's very obvious that there's 2 wide receivers that Bo Nix has connected with, and there's one main guy who he is not connected with. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that changes the overall landscape of the wide receiver room, because he has a connection very strongly with Devon Bailey, which how can you not? He seems to be a stud. He was the training camp darling, let's say that. He was a stud. Everyone was so excited. He's got that one catch in the end zone that somebody had clipped from practice and it had gone off, and everyone was like, Devon Bailey is that guy. That guy he for sure is. And he's fun to watch. He's exciting to watch. And if you got a rookie quarterback, you might as well use the rookie too and see what you can make out of him, because who knows, maybe in a year, 2 years, 3 years, they can have an insane connection and boom, you don't even have to worry about it. But then the next guy I thought was going to be Courtland Sutton, and it's not Courtland Sutton. It's Josh Reynolds. And Josh Reynolds I want him to be so dynamic, but he doesn't have the speed. He can win the 50-50 ball. He can win it. But that's really all I think we're going to see out of him. But it's very, very apparent on how many targets Courtland Sutton had that the relationship and the chemistry is just not there. Now, of course, it is only one game. And I try to always preface, we are talking about one game here. But man, it just felt like it just didn't feel right. Like something feels off between him and Court. And I don't know if it's because we didn't see Courtland Sutton at minicamp and OTAs or what it is, but it did just feel a little bit off. So we'll be interesting to see this week. Hopefully they can get Courtland Sutton involved a lot more. If you can get Courtland involved, you have a really good chance of winning all these games. We know he's capable of winning the 50-50 ball. He's big, he's tall, he's able to do that. But it is really questionable, just like okay, what's going to happen with this wide receiver room if Josh Reynolds is that number one guy and Courtland Sutton obviously has a lot of incentives that they just put in his contract to earn some more guaranteed money, to get some money. So I don't know. We will see. Dun, 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 dun. I'm reading some of the comments. I think one of the saddest things also, let's just chit chat about this real quick, is Bo Nix's interception to Courtland Sutton in the end zone. First of all, that sucked terribly. But really, I just think that I don't think it wasn't a terrible throw. Yes, he was throwing into double coverage, which I don't love. But again, when you're throwing to wide receiver number one, you like kind of hope that he can make it. But I just don't think he had the arm strength to get it there. Like, I don't think it was off route or anything like that. I just truthfully think that he didn't have the arm strength to get it all the way there. And unfortunately, Courtland Sutton didn't realize that he needed to move up further. And that whole play was really weird too, because like Courtland knew that it was going to be short and he just kind of like stood there for a quick second. So I don't know if that was just like his reactionary time to doing it. But of course, when I sit there and I watch it, I was like, oh, well, like Courtland Sutton should have jumped in front of the ball. But when you're actually playing the game, I'm sure it's a little more than that. So yeah, it was interesting for sure. I see this comment too. They are forcing it to Sutton and everyone knows it. I do think that this is part of the plan, but that's because he's your wide receiver number one. But it will be fascinating to see how the coverage continues to shift. If Pittsburgh is looking at it as like, oh, well, Josh Reynolds was that guy against Seattle, how will the coverage for defenses shift? And I think that will be really interesting. Let's see. Reading some of these comments. People are not happy on Alex Singleton, which don't get me wrong, I don't ride high on Alex Singleton either. I do think that he gets a lot of tackles, yards after, but people are like mad. Starting like Riley Moss, I thought had a really good game. Like, did we all watch the same game? Because yeah, I know he got beat a little bit, but like, of course, eventually an NFL team is going to move the ball. So like, let's not freak out on him. If you rewatch the first 5 games last season, Shawn was pretty pass happy when he should have been running the rock. Okay, I'm trying to find this comment so I can put it on here. I would totally agree with this. Shawn Pyton wants everyone to be Drew Brees, and he wants everybody to be able to have that sort of offense when they do need to stick to the run. Stick to the run. It gives your quarterback a little bit of time. This week will be fascinating to see how they change their game plan from week 1 against Seattle to week 2. And I cannot wait to see what they do if they decide to stick with their game plan of like, this is what's going to work for our offense and we just need to figure it out, or if they do adjust. So I can't wait for Sunday. I'm pumped about it. Let's see. We'll do just a few more comments because there's a ton that have come in. Moss is crazy fast. Thank you. Like, I totally agree with you. I thought that he was a stud. I see what everybody is calling the wide receivers. Like, no, but it's fine. How short a leash is VJ on? I can see the same D as last year. Can't stop the run in the second halves. Again, we got to give them a little bit more credit because they had a phenomenal first half. Give them a little bit of credit. See how the more in shape they get. I mean, nothing can prepare you for 60 minutes, like I mentioned. But now you got to be able to step it up too, right? But that also really relies on the offense having to actually move the ball. You can't have yards after carry if Bo doesn't learn to look off the receiver that he is throwing to. Yeah, that one was a bit interesting. Again, not sure if it was just Shawn saying we're sticking to our script, go for it, or if it was just nerves for Bo Nix, but they do need to figure out their yards after carry, and Bo needs to be able to look, which Bo during preseason, it felt like he was all over the place, so I don't know what the difference was between preseason and between now. Okay. See, thank you so much. I love when you guys agree with me. Our Bears defense barely gave up over 300 yards for a whole season. That would be top 5, considering all the 3 and outs. They played well. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Let's not hate on the defense too much. Let's not do it. People are talking about the players are slow. Our wide receivers do not have the speed. Trust me, I get that. But they're gonna have to figure it out. Dun, dun, dun. Court should have okay, this is on the interception. Court should have ran to the back pylon, but he cut the route and lazily at that. He looks like he jogs through his routes a lot. I agree. I do think he's kind of playing lazy ball. I don't know. I'm excited to see week 2. I think that's going to teach us a lot about it. So we will see. But you guys, please let me know before we log off here if you like the 10 observations. That will let me know if you want to see it next week. Of course, there's been so much good stuff. I've appreciated all of the love that you guys have given me. I also didn't forget to mention that when I was at King Brown, I was able to say hi to some people. So it was really cool. So thank you guys for always, if you ever see us out, make sure you say hi to anybody at the fan. We're always excited. We love talking sports with you guys. So a ton of fun right there. So yes, please let me know. Again, let me know in the comments before we log off. I'm going to give it 30 more seconds if you want to see 10 observations each week that we have. Everyone's saying yes. So good. I'm happy to see that is coming through tomorrow. We will look ahead to the Steelers, of course. I'll give you guys my final or my 3 keys to the game, I guess I should say, and let you know what we hear from the locker room today. So we will be back tomorrow. Bo Nix is not a bust yet, everybody. No hating on the rookie QB just yet. Let's see what he's able to do in these upcoming weeks with Shawn Pyton. But on that note, I will leave you all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.